Hi, my name is Heidi, and today I wanted to talk about finding purpose. And hopefully, before we dive into purpose, we'll be looking more at your passions. I found that whatever leads us towards feeling more purposeful always begins with what excites us and what we feel really passionate about at our core, our interests. This audio is for anyone who's maybe unhappy with their life direction. If you're looking for a change, if you dislike or even hate your job, if you feel that you're underachieving in what it is that you're doing, if you've just lost your zest for life and you don't feel like you're living with a real sense of authentic meaning, if life and responsibility has just gotten in the way and taken you off track and away from what it is that you feel that your purpose could have been or should have been. And that's really easy to happen, if you have a responsibility to others in your family. It's really easy to start doing what you feel you have to do from a financial perspective and let your own interests go. This is also for anyone who's feeling confused and has never really felt that they've had a lot of passion and purpose in their life or in what they're doing day in and day out. And also for those who don't think that they have the skills or the money or the time to try something different with their lives. And if you have that sense of feeling that you're running out of time. What happens when we're wrapped up in those kind of excuses or stories is that we're coming from a place of fear, as opposed to a place where we feel that the skills that we have, and I find a lot of people find it very difficult to acknowledge their own skills and attributes and the positive things that they have to be able to serve others with or serve the world with. Some people don't even realise that they have hidden skills. This happens constantly on our retreat. The last 2 days we focus entirely on purpose and passion, and it's very common for people to have these little hidden talents that they're not really sharing with the world. And they're not utilising them at all in their everyday life. They're not doing anything that's even remotely close to honouring those talents. So the fear of failing, the fear of the risk, and the fear of the money or the lack of resources can get in the way, and we can come up with a million excuses around why it can't happen. So I want to tell you a little story about when I was working in the hospitality industry. In my 20s, I was highly ambitious. I went from waitress to supervisor to manager to consultant fairly quickly over a 5-year period. Now, you can be very good at something, or what you're doing can have purpose and you can be passionate about it, but it's not your purpose and it's not your passion. And this is a common mistake that we make, where what we're doing seems purposeful. We're getting up every day and we're giving it our best. And there can be small things even within that role or within our job or our daily life that have purpose. And we can even put an immense amount of passion into it because we have the natural kind of drive or ambition to excel at whatever we do. But it may not be your purpose and it may not be your passion. So what happens is you end up becoming very drained by that because it's not authentic to you. It doesn't really hold meaning to you. And what I used to tell myself constantly in my mind, the stories that I harbored and held on to were, I don't have the money. I was very much a self-starter. I didn't have the financial backing from family to help me buy my first car or help pay for university or, I very much started earning my own money at 14 and was taking care of myself from from 17 onwards. So the money thing was a big thing for me, and the restaurant industry is not a socially friendly industry in terms of having a lot of spare time to then go and study. So my time was heavily tied up, 70-hour weeks sometimes. And so these were very real excuses. They weren't just stories. They weren't something I was just telling myself. And obviously the fear or the overwhelm of not failing, but the risk that would be involved. Like, if I stopped working those hours and focused on what I really wanted to do, which was to work in the health industry, then I wouldn't be able to support myself, or I really, looking back, wouldn't have really been able to continue to fund the lifestyle that I had come to love. So what I'm not saying is drop everything, quit your job, and just focus entirely on your new venture, because there has to be a certain level of common sense. But what I used to tell myself amongst those stories about why I couldn't do this is, over and over again, every day, almost like an affirmation, I would constantly think up ways. I was always reading books and going to see acupuncturists and those types of things. I was constantly thinking of a gateway of how I could jump over into that industry. But when we think about something logically, sometimes we can really miss the plan when we have so much control over how it's going to happen and in what time frame. We miss, this ability to trust and to have faith that maybe if my intention is to have something, if I keep heading in that direction and thinking about what it is that I want, that maybe I don't need to know all the details, and that maybe life will take me in that direction if this is what I'm focusing on. It may not be in the time frame that I think, it may not be in the way that I think, but maybe this ability to live with purpose and passion, doing something that we love, even if that's just parenting, shifting the way that you parent over to service. It can happen just by starting to have the focus to do so, to make a decision that this is where I want my life to go. And that's essentially what I was doing subconsciously without even realizing it. I would constantly obsess over the fact that I wanted to work in the health industry. I was very much known amongst my friends as the one that would give, the health advice when something was wrong. Take this herb, try eating this, eat less of that. And it was because I was constantly reading and thinking about and interested and excited about those topics. So with this kind of thought process that was going on, what ended up happening was my body completely crashed, mentally, physically, emotionally, and I was forced then to look for my own answers, which led me into the health industry. My body crashed to such a point that I could no longer work. I actually lost my contracts as a consultant. And I was forced to move home to my parents, which was horrifying for me, to even think about being non-independent. And I didn't really have the funds to continue seeing different natural health therapists and even, GPs and that kind of thing to get the answers that I was seeking to get my health back on track. So instead, I chose to put the money into study, and I was pretty much immobile. So sitting at home studying all day, it was going to be worthwhile. So I went from earning more money then than I do now, to being completely dependent on my parents, which at the time was shocking. But looking back, it was a complete and utter blessing. And I completed somewhat of my naturopathy degree, the nutrition and herbal medicine parts that really interested me, I completed, which then took me on this journey then into coaching and yoga and eventually into the industry, because I realized there were so many other people that needed more of a holistic way of looking at, say, mental health issues or stress or balance in their lives. And that led me to being able to understand that when you don't have or live with meaning and purpose and passion, that your body will eventually give you the answer, or your mind will eventually say enough, or something. And I don't fully understand how it happens, but something will change to lead you towards that direction if it's something that you truly want. And sometimes having the faith and the trust along the way to realise that it is possible to be able to make a shift, then that's all we need to get started. You know, that's the most important thing, is to have the intention for it to happen, and to allow those intentions, those dreams, to fill up some of your time and some of your headspace, and to see where that's going to take you. Obviously, action is a very important part of the plan, but the most important part is getting started and realising that it can be possible. And something that really blew my mind, this would have been about 3 or 4 years into running retreat, one of my booking managers came to me and she said, we have this 80-something-year-old man, I can't remember, but he was in his 80s, who wanted to come on retreat. And I was like, what kind of health issues does he have? Like, you know, is it something serious like cancer and, you know, those kind of things that we don't really work with? It's not our specialty. And they're like, no. He recently lost his wife and he wants to reassess his value system and how he's going to live the rest of his life. And he wants our help with that. And he wants to look at, you know, the things that he loves doing on his own now that she's not there, and how basically he could live his life with meaning and purpose and passion still in his 80s. And it completely and utterly blew me away that if we think we don't have time now, and someone in their 80s is still putting up their hand to grow and better themselves and find meaning and purpose and enjoy things that he felt passionate about in his 80s, we don't really have any excuses. If someone in their 80s is still looking at living literally the best life that they possibly can, and not rolling over and you know, and curling up in a ball because that's probably what most people would do at that time. So do not underestimate your skills. Do not underestimate the power of faith and trust. And do not underestimate the power of the human spirit. That when you are truly aligned with something that you are passionate about, there is something that happens universally to get behind that energetically and take you in that direction. And I cannot tell you how many people on retreat have sat there day 3, day 4, completely miserable with their lives, thinking that it takes months and months and months to deal with their stress first before they can then rebuild their health, before they can then start looking at a plan. And we used to do all of it in 7 days, and even they were completely shocked at the progress that they could make in such a short amount of time, because we always felt that the healing wasn't sitting in therapy talking more about what causes me pain, that the healing is in the doing. The healing is in the taking action, and the healing is it's in the doing. It's in the practicing and leading yourself along that path, even if you don't know what all the details are going to be yet. You don't know where the money's going to come from. You don't necessarily have the time. And something that really stuck with me massively, I used to go to a lot of motivational seminars in my 20s, sort of Anthony Robbins style seminars, mainly around the internet business. And so before, even though I had this study in naturopathy and eventually yoga and wanted to move into the health industry, that didn't happen immediately. And what I did to create the bridge into that area that I wanted to work in was I decided to move over towards business coaching in the internet market area because I loved it. There's nothing about, the internet that I didn't love. It was very exciting, very new at the time. And business coaching then led me into personal coaching because no one ever came to see me just wanting to talk about a spreadsheet or their budget or their profit and loss. What they did want to talk about was the issues that they were having running their business, which was always personal or which was always related to health. So whether I realized it or not, I was always looking to kind of build this bridge of what would eventually take me in, full on into the health industry. And then obviously the concept of Alive Wellness Retreats was born from that experience. But when I used to head to these big, seminars over 4 days where all of my friends would laugh at me for going, I would just absorb, every single speaker's information massively. And it was one of those seminars where you're expected to buy their program at the end, and I physically didn't have the money to buy, but I would spend my nights and my weekends in my late 20s teaching myself how to build websites and teaching myself about the marketing and finding all the free information that existed on the internet, and really getting these skills under my belt. And something that would come up continuously in these seminars was to do the opposite of what everyone else was doing. To zig when everyone else will zag. And the other thing that I noticed about, and it was common for people to laugh at me about going to these seminars, and Heidi has another, harebrained scheme, and these are the same people that are still sitting in the same jobs who are not entirely happy with their lives and almost at a point where they still feel stuck. And I've never felt stuck, and I've never felt not free. But if I show a business idea to someone and everyone sort of screws their face up, which I've learnt in Australia with the whole tall poppy syndrome that we have going on in that country, and, definitely in the UK it exists, not so much in the States, but I've learnt that if someone screws up their face, that plan is a winner. Because I've also learnt that when you stand up and you want to go for something that you're really passionate about, there will be immediately people around you that will tell you all of the logical reasons why you can't do it. And the reason that is because they've never done it. Most of them have never done it. They've never gone out on their own. They've never tried to seek a life of purpose and passion. And when they're telling you not to zig and to zag, you know that it's probably a cracking plan. And what happens, and the reason that they're telling you not to go down that pathway or giving you all of this very sensible advice is genuinely because it's going to bring up their inadequacy, their inability to have the courage and the willingness and the commitment to do the same thing. So when you look at the first part of our process, and I mention this in the other audio guides, we talk a lot about keywords: willingness, commitment, responsibility, choice, attitude, intention, gratitude. These are the underbelly of what you need to harness if you're going to find purpose and passion in your life. I've never met anyone who lives with purpose and passion that isn't grateful for what they have. And I have never met anyone who lives with purpose and passion and meaning that doesn't have a great attitude towards life, regardless of the obstacles that have come across their path. They also have willingness. They are also committed to getting back up over and over again. And I honestly think there is about 5% of the population that really, really will do this and go after their dreams in a committed, willing, and passionate way. And all it is that they've harnessed a simple set of mindset, compass points to keep referring to that have eventually become habits. They've become life habits. And although everyone that laughed at me for heading to those seminars, back in early sort of 2000, it gave me those seminars and the positive material that I would read and listen to these speakers and listen to their words. It gave me those mindset tools. And for me, there was no turning back. I was never going to live a life where I felt stuck. where I felt that I had to do something because it was considered what the community thought I should do. And is in the community, that is, those who are closest around you, and what society tells us to do. So if you want to get on this path of zigging when others zag and have the kind of, lifestyle that you actually feel you have genuinely created out of what you find meaning in, then you have to get a hold of your stories, because your stories that you're telling yourself are what are holding you back. I don't have time, I don't have the money, and it comes back to this ability to encompass faith and trust and gratitude, to a sense, being grateful for what you already have. What I want you to do is definitely listen to the Mind Tools audio guide that I have, because if you want to start to radically transform your relationship to stories and let them be just what they are, which is a bunch of words strung together inside your head that may or may not be true, then you need to listen to that guide, because we walk you through how to transform your relationship to what you tell yourself about what is and isn't possible. Because if we have space there, if you can listen to the story in your head that says don't do it, or you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or I'm confused, and you keep telling yourself that over and over again, then that is where you're going to stay. Instead, start reading the material that will take you where you want to go. There is time. There is always time. It might mean compromise less TV. It might cost money, but you might swap a bottle of wine or a box of chocolate for a book. There are many, many ways to find more flexibility in the situation than you think you have. And what I want you to think about is, and this is your tool and your exercise for today, I want you to think about what it is your 80-year-old self, picture yourself as that 80-year-old man. What would they tell you to do now? You're heading in towards your 80s. You know at best you have a 10 to 20 years left, hopefully. What would that 80-year-old version of you look back to you now and say, I wish you should have done this? Or what would that 80-year-old feel regret about? And that 80-year-old, if you look forward to the 80-year-old and you look at that person, you look at yourself as an 80-year-old and you imagine yourself how you are at that time, what is the legacy of that 80-year-old? What is what that 80-year-old left behind? Because if you do this two ways, be the 80-year-old looking back and be yourself looking forward at the 80-year-old, you're going to start to get some perspective on the bigger picture of your life. You're going to move out of the present moment of I don't have, or I can't, or I won't, or I don't know how, and you're going to look forward and go, hang on, I want that 80-year-old to say and feel and be proud of this legacy. This is what I left behind. So essentially you're crafting the vision of your life between now and then. And you need to listen to that 80-year-old, listen to the words that they say to you. If the 80-year-old says to you, I wish for you right now that you could have the courage to do this, this and this, to live this way, to live in this place, to travel, to enjoy, to soak up life, to soak up every moment, to have deeper connections with people. Whatever it is that 80-year-old is going to say to you, and it will be unique for each of you. You need to sit down with pen and paper and think about those two things. The healing is in the doing. So even if something terrible has happened to you, the healing doesn't come, and I said this before, it doesn't come from sitting about talking about the trauma or the issue or how bad everything it is. It is a complete time and energy sucker to keep doing that. It is fine for the interim, but if it continues, it becomes unhelpful. The healing is in the doing. So it is in the doing of new things. It's in the practice of enjoying things that you're passionate about. It's in the practice of finding your purpose that the healing will come. It doesn't come before that. It only comes within that moment, within those practices. So, I would love for you to sit down and I would like for you to write your 80-year-old birthday speech. Think that either your partner or someone close to you is going to stand up and give a speech. What are they going to say about you? So there's three things you're doing here. You're looking forward to the 80-year-old, and you're looking at what kind of legacy you want that 80-year-old to leave behind. You're being the 80-year-old, looking back and giving yourself right now advice. And the third thing is be someone outside looking in. Be the person that stands next to you and says, this is my best friend, or this is my partner, and I am so proud of them because, or I love them because. What they're going to say is, he served or she served life in this way. She served others or he served others in this way. What are they going to say? Because those words are that's your legacy. That's what you want to be remembered for. And those words are going to be a marker or highlight what it is right now that matters to you most about the bigger picture of your life. And dream. Imagine what those people would say to you if you had lived the life that you had really wanted to live and had been dreaming of. How would they describe you in your life? What would they say that you'd done as a job? How would you have served people? The values and the keywords are going to pop out of that speech. Then you have to get a highlighter or just circle each word, go back through and circle words that have meaning to you. It might have been, she was always there. The value for that is that you were caring. You took the time. She would always cook us amazing meals, or he would always take us and do things, or he was had so much fantastic knowledge because of all the time and research he put into this. It doesn't matter what it is, but you're going to be able to pick out keywords or values. Once you have those keywords, what it is you want to be remembered by, what is the value and meaning going to be of your life in words, a few keywords, then I want you to think about what it is that you could do in your life. And it might not be quit your job and do something different. It might be just small changes right now. What can I do to bring these values to life? And start to be really creative. What is it that I can do today, tomorrow, and the next day? What can I do more of that's going to take me down that path towards my legacy? Where the 80-year-old self will turn back and say to you, you've got it. You're doing a fantastic job. You're exactly where you want to be. You're living by choice. So as soon as you have those list of values, you then have to create ways. You have to create an action list of how you're going to put them into effective action. Not in a month when you think you're going to have more time. Think about what you can compromise on and exchange to give yourself the time, because there is always room. There is always room. There is always more money than you think. And it's only when you make the choice that those ideas will come to you. And that whole concept of living with passion and purpose will start to become more workable. So I'm going to leave those tools and tips with you. I would love to hear about, in the comments box below, what gives you passion, what gives you purpose, and what do you want your legacy to be in your life? And if you were to take action starting right now, what is it going to be? I want to hear about it, because as soon as you say this out loud, you give other people the freedom to do it, and it helps you commit to do it. It says to other people, yes, I can do this too. I don't want just 5% of the population to think and live this way. And you don't have to assess whether you think you're in the 5 or the 95. You just have to start making a choice, and that it really helps if you can tell us all below what is going to start giving you more passion and purpose, and what is going to be your legacy, and what can you do about it starting from today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will talk soon. Bye.